Are you ready for the fire? Because the hot takes are coming. It's way too early for them, but we're going to give them to you anyway today. What are the early returns on the rookie class at several key positions, including offensive tackle, the safeties, and maybe even a little bit of cornerback talk? Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I am your host, former NFL and NFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics and Locked On Chiefs. He's at Ryan Tracy NFL on Twitter. I'm at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day and get to talking about some of these prospects and some of their outings and what to look forward to. So I want to start with this team out in New Orleans and Trevor Penning. They drafted him out of Northern Iowa, big time tackle, taking him in the first round. And there's some question marks about him. Maybe a little bit of rawness, but I think it was kind of overshadowed with his demonstrative physicality, the extras that he brought to the table. And it sounded like early on, the Saints kind of wanted him to tone it down a little bit in practice. He was starting several fights and whatnot. But what are some things that you're hearing out of New Orleans so far when it comes to Trevor Penning?
The interesting thing to me is that I'm hearing more shock than anything else that he somehow was going to materialize into this, great kick step pass set kind of guy first, when his film shows you he is a run first guy. He plays with that nasty edge, and that's his advantage. You take that away from him, I think what you find is a guy that's got to make the adjustments to use his athleticism, which is perfectly good for the position, to actually attack the skill set that he needs to be able to pass protect in this league. I think it's a work in progress. And I think a lot of people overestimated and got too hung up on those details that you mentioned so eloquently that are the way that you finish plays. That was his eval, that he always ends nasty. Okay, that's great. But if you don't have the fundamentals to get there, it puts you in this position now where if you're just taking one preseason game, there's a lot of folks that would say the early return is that he was overdrafted and the Saints made a mistake. Now, this is just one preseason game, so I'm here to tell everybody to relax a little bit. It's coming. But you got to let the guy grow into his new role. I think it's too early to call him a failure or a bust or anything like that. I've seen some outlandish stuff get thrown around. I think he's just a guy that's on his path, and he needs to get there.
There were some people that thought that the youngster out of Tulsa being drafted to the Dallas Cowboys, Smith, was maybe one of the guys who was kind of really similar in comparison to Trevor Penning in the sense of a little bit of rawness there and having to develop in certain areas. And one guy was tagged with it more than the other. And it sounds like so far with Trevor Penning, he's going to have to work through some of those things. Do you think it's just a sense of just honing in on the technical aspect of things and not trying to use maybe his size and aggressiveness to overpower guys? Because it seemed like there was a lot of that on film, and justifiably so. When you play at Northern Iowa, you're as big as he is, you are able to do some of those things to the opponents that you play against, but in the NFL level, it's really not going to work as frequently.
Yeah, I think it's just about, coming back to ground. Yes, you got pumped up a lot, especially after the Senior Bowl. He had a pretty good outing there. A lot of guys glom onto that because it's one aspect that you want to see on your field at the professional level. Getting there is not the easiest thing, too. So I think it is technical. I think it is about using his body in a way that isn't as much power, isn't as much aggression, and using it smarter to get himself in position. I think it's more about his lower body than his top, but that's just the way that it goes. Tackles need to get in position with their kick and get to where they're comfortable with it. I think that comfort will come. I don't think it's anywhere near a dire straight or anything. And I think Smith, by comparison, is a guy that was more comfortable in using his feet to get positional advantages in his pass game. So I'm pretty comfortable, and I think they'll probably even out closer to year 2, maybe 3.
We're talking about some of these young guys coming into the NFL and having to figure it out a little bit. And a couple guys over there in Seattle kind of hit the ground running a little bit. Abraham Lucas almost call him Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lucas, the rookie out of Washington State in Seattle, was close to that area and able to get a good look at him. But he earned an 83.4 run blocking grade and was amongst the best rookie offensive linemen this past weekend. So Abraham Lucas, a guy who on film, it looked like definitely a day two guy. They were able to get him at the top of the third round. What are some of the early returns you're hearing on him?
Well, I think it's that combination. Like, he always had that kind of really thick lower body. There were some questions whether he could move his feet well enough to protect well enough to get by. I think they got a steal. I actually had him as a second round grade because I think applying that athleticism, even though he is a pretty girthy lower body guy, that posterior chain comes in handy when you're trying to move guys out of the way. This does not surprise me in the least. Maybe the only thing that surprised me is both he and Charles Cross finished in the top 10 of rookie tackles this particular week. And again, it is just week one, folks, but you got to take stock every step of the way. And I think that's encouraging, not just for the Seahawks this season, but for John Schneider being able to continue to develop talent that's not necessarily a first round pick.
Well, you talked about being a first round pick and Charles Cross, and you kind of mentioned him. Excuse me. He's playing that left tackle position there, and 82.2 pass blocking grade. So, I mean, that's pretty good for a guy, rookie, facing some NFL pass rushers. Obviously, we know, there wasn't TJ Watt out there with the Seattle Seahawks playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what you're hearing from him, I think you're a little bit less shocked, right, to see him do well as opposed to maybe Abraham Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, the athleticism was always there. That was going to be his base. Power was going to be a little bit of a question mark, right? And he hasn't seen that yet. But I think for a first weekend out, for having two bookend rookies on that offensive line, having them see 56 combined pass sets, giving up one pressure, I think you got to be pretty happy if you're a Seattle fan or anybody in that organization.
Yeah, Seattle, they've definitely had to deal with their share of bad offensive line. They're throwing the resources at the O-line, but haven't really got the reward back from it right now. It sounds like it potentially is paying off. Definitely interested to see how these guys continue moving along with their development. When we come back, we're going to talk to you a little bit about some safeties that stood out. We touched on Jaquan Brisker yesterday. We're going to bring him back up in the conversation of Kyle Hamilton, Daxton Hill, Nick Cross. How did all these guys fare? Stay tuned. Keep it locked right here to find out.
That's because everybody needs a little bit of edge to get that advantage. And the one that I started taking recently is AG1 from Athletic Greens. They're our newest partner. And you got to use it every day. That's what I'm doing now. It's easy to intake. It actually has a nice tropical flavor that I enjoy. You can put it with your coffee. It is a supplement beyond all supplements. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole foods, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you all across the board with digestion, with energy, with making it part of your lifestyle that's pretty easy to do. It provides immunosupport as well. All the things that you need to give yourself a boost, give yourself an edge, whether you're competing on a practice field, trying to make a roster, or whether you're trying to get on with your daily routine and give yourself a little bit of a boost. It's super simple. All you do is add 1 scoop of this product to 1 cup of water, give it a shake, and you're ready to go. I think it goes really great with coffee myself. It's sustainable, it's easy to do, and it's cheaper than getting a cup of coffee at one of those, franchise stores. I'm not going to name them outright because, there's a lot to go into that. It's naturally certified, and it goes a long way in making your life a little bit better. Right now, they're even trying to help you reclaim your health and immune system in a more convenient daily nutritional supplement. It makes it easier that they're giving you a deal. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D supplement, as well as 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network, and take ownership of your health. Get a pick-me-up for your immune system and the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Awesome to hear about all that good stuff there. And we got some more good stuff for you. Or maybe not if you are a Baltimore Ravens fan. Because Kyle Hamilton, a little alarming on his first go-around. You see some of the missed tackles. There was a play. Okay, I do want to point out some of the positives. I saw him in hot pursuit of Malik Willis, where he chased him down. He was at a single high position, kind of planted in the end zone, and he pretty much ran Malik Willis down to the extent of making it like a very short gain, maybe 2 yards on the pickup because of the range that he showed there. So there was some positives, but also some negatives. I mean, we're talking about some missed tackles out there in the open field, one being on Malik Willis, who ended up scoring a touchdown on that run there. So some things to be concerned about with Kyle Hamilton.
I think it's just a rough start. I think if you're going to pick an opponent that is going to try to run away from you, I think you're pretty much in trouble with Malik Willis. You're in trouble with Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota. Like, it is very dependent on your matchup. And again, folks, with 1 week under your belt, I expect much higher things from Kyle Hamilton. I didn't see anything that made me think that he's in any kind of trouble of not living up to his draft stock or anything like that. Are you concerned any deeper than, hey, that was just a rough day out?
I think there's this certain level of athleticism that you would like your guys to have. And, how he tested, I'm not sure if he hit all the marks. Now, you don't have to go out there and be a 4.3 guy and, have all this crazy agility and acceleration and all that. But it definitely helps in the sense of some of the things that you're going to be asked to do on the football field. And one thing with guys like him, and we saw some of the clips floating around, struggling in coverage to cover guys vertically. And some of those things happened on film in all 22 in college as well. He's so long for the position. And that really hurts the change of direction. It hurts your ability to really mirror and match the movement skills of some of these smaller receivers, which when you're 6'4", 220-pound safety, everybody's pretty much smaller than you. And I think these are things that he's going to have to figure out how to overcome it, not just from a coverage standpoint, but as you can see with 3 missed tackles in limited snaps, also in the open field tackle perspective. So trying to figure out his angles and what he can and can't get away with at the NFL level. That's something that he's going to have to take really preseason to figure out. And hopefully, they give him a lot of time in practice to really kind of thud guys up and understand some of the angles he has to take, because if not, it's going to be a rough go for him. Who didn't have a rough go and one missed tackle in his snaps that he took, but Daxton Hill. And everything we're hearing out of Cincinnati is that they love the safety and they feel like they got a guy, which he was one of the more versatile guys in this class, a guy that can play down in the box as a slot defender as well as do too high, single high type stuff. I think a guy like, Javon Holland out of Oregon and what he was for Oregon, being more of a nickel type defensive back. And then all of a sudden goes to Miami Dolphins, plays more traditional safety, and he excels. I think we're looking for a similar transition for Daxton Hill. And so far, it sounds like they're really loving what they're getting out of him.
Yeah, and I think they should. The safety play needs to be on the up there, and that versatility, I think. A missed tackle, not a problem in the first week. 3, maybe you're a little bit more concerned, but again, this is the adjustment period. This is getting up to tempo. I didn't see anything from Hill that made me think that there's more of a recognition, an angular pursuit. I'm a little more concerned about that with Hamilton, like you were talking about. I do want to point out another guy that I thought, upon review, I think maybe outdid himself more so than I thought I had him. Marquise Bell had a great first week out. Saw him get a little bit of pressure, saw him get a little bit of coverage. He played nearly as many snaps as Hill did, and I think he actually came out looking a little bit farther along in terms of how he's fitting into his defense. So I think it's all about the matchup and how this process goes forward. They have 2 more contests to get that under the belt and realize that not only does practice step up a beat when you go to a preseason game, but preseason is then going to go step up another beat when you get to the regular season. And nobody knows more about that than you. It's those small transitions that make big differences, right?
Yeah, it does. And for Daxton Hill, the small transition is going to be, can he make a play? He had 2 near interceptions in that game, and that's why I think they're so high on him out of Cincinnati right now. One from a single high position where he read the quarterback's eyes perfect and jumped a route and nearly had an interception. He just met the ball at the same time as the receiver coming across, almost had a pick there, and then in the end zone, jumping backwards, had a nice beat on it from a too high position, jumping backwards, got it both hands on the ball, but when he hit the ground, the ball popped out. So Daxton Hill, he's out there kind of making plays, and from a coverage standpoint, I think he's everything I thought he would be. A couple other guys we did mention in the previous episode, Nick Cross, Jaquan Brisker, those are 2 safeties that definitely stood out as well. Guys making plays. We talked about Brisker and some of the things he was able to do, single-handedly forcing a 3-and-out from the defensive standpoint for the Chicago Bears. These are kind of playing out to be a really good class of the safety position. But the first guy that was taken off the board there, How is he going to do? We're going to keep an eye on that and much more. But when we get back, we're going to stay in the secondary and talk about a pair of cornerbacks in Seattle who kind of had a little bit of a rough outing. But first, we want to talk to you about how it's almost the start of the NFL regular season. And I love this time of year. And if you are into sports betting or fantasy, you need a competitive edge to win. That's why I highly recommend Elias Game Plan app. It's the ultimate sports betting and fantasy companion for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Elias Game Plan is the only sports app from the most trusted name in sports. Yes, that's Elias Sports Bureau. All right. The official statisticians of the U.S. Pro Sports League, including the NFL. Their app, it lets you do all kind of stuff and have access to the team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons. The insight is second to none. All right. This app is really your one-stop source for everything that you need as it pertains to sports betting and fantasy sports. It's the most respected in the team industry. Quality information is key. And I'm glad that they created this app for the accurate data and important context. So we need you to take my advice right now and download the Elias Game Plan app today. And they got some features available all the time. Take your game to the next level. NFL season is right around the corner, so don't wait and find Elias Game Plan in the App Store and play that today. Also, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Built Bar. And they're always coming out with some new, really good flavors. And if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? New flavors all the time, especially this cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to a new flavor, cookie dough chunk puffs, and they have this light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com right now and snag you a box for either yourself or the family, and it would be the perfect treat. Or, find a great hiding space. I recommend in your desk, in your office. People don't snoop around there. So, the kids won't be snooping around there either. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puffs, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they are healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. All right, you're going to love this new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a late-night snack or a snack after a workout, or you just want a quick bite to eat, Built is the perfect protein bar for you. And they taste better than the candy bar. So ditch the calories, ditch the fat, ditch the sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar. Go to Built.com right now and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off of your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 at Built.com. Let's talk about these cornerbacks and a little bit of a rough outing for Tariq Woolen, cornerback out of UTSA, and Coby Bryant, cornerback out of Cincinnati. All right. Now, these guys are coming to Seattle, and I felt like this was a good defense for them to fall into if it was the Seattle 3 scheme that we've traditionally known Pete Carroll to play. It doesn't cause for you to have just this ton of pure athleticism, even though both of these guys have it, but you don't need to have the greatest of movement skills. We've seen guys like Richard Sherman excel in this defense, and not because he just had great mirror matching skills, but he can think and he can just use his natural athleticism that he's gifted to make plays. Well, Tariq Woolen, I think that they were expecting that from him, a guy who's 6'4", over 200 pounds, ran in the 4.2s. I mean, just a physical freak. But he had a rough outing. And one thing that's for sure, it is extremely difficult for the movement skills of a 6'4" guy to mirror and match some of these other guys. Now, he's been killing it in training camp. So that's there. But it sounds like he had a little bit of struggles in his first game. Not even just sounds like. I mean, I watched the game. He had some struggles. And I think that's something that you should kind of expect. And not going to say, I suggested that he work with Antonio Cromartie. And my reasoning behind that was because, look, you have to understand how to play being as long of a corner as you are. And I don't know if he took me up on that or if he took Antonio Cromartie, who ended up reaching out to him, up on it. But that's something that he definitely needs to do.
Well, and it's a process, right? Like you have to realize, and maybe that's what he's doing right now, is that something more imperative than you thought than just getting in and learning the defense. Or maybe that's what you were focused on. It is a pretty sizable jump up to this level of football from where he came, more so than it is for Coby Bryant. So maybe it is about the mental side of it and realizing how to play your game with your body type to the best of your ability, not necessarily just playing and fitting into this defense. I think that he's going to be okay because in the end, that athleticism is going to give you the edge to recover and get that kind of down. It may just be a longer process than everybody hoped. As for Coby Bryant, I didn't see the entire game, but what I saw was him making a couple of decent open field tackles. I know he did have a missed tackle as well. He did give up that touchdown to Pickens. That was the big play, right? But I thought it was much more up and down for Coby Bryant. What did you think of his takeaway from the corner spot?
I mean, you see the touchdown that he gave up to George Pickens, and I mean, my initial reaction, and maybe it's just the defensive back in me, but it's like, well, there's a clear push off there. I mean, there were some struggles outside of that. But again, another guy who is now him, again, different. We're talking about two totally different things here. With Tariq Woolen, he has all the athletic ability, but the size kind of limits the movement skills that he has. Well, Coby Bryant, maybe not the most physical, freakish guy, and has to rely a little bit more on technique. But at the next level, you have to be really on point if you're not as athletic as the guys that you're covering. And I think that's something that's going to continue to pop up until he truly finds a way to understand, okay, this is what goes into playing at the next level with some of the limitations that I might have. And again, I mean, he's coming out of Cincinnati, not the greatest of conferences as opposed, and when I say that, I mean just the NFL caliber receivers that they're putting out. So who was he going up against that's going to challenge him the way that even these preseason receivers are going to challenge him? I think that's going to be the transition for him to really figure out how he has to play with some of his limitations.
Now, it's just a week, but from what you saw, do you have confidence these guys can both rebound and be assets for their team as rookies, or do you think it's going to take a little bit longer than that?
Oh, no, I mean, both of these guys can really figure it out. I don't think it takes a whole lot. It takes understanding where you are and what the issues are. All right, there are a lot of people that end up, they're playing the game and then they're just out there and they just want to rely all on athleticism. At the NFL level, you just can't do that. You have to figure out how are you going to win and what's going to be consistent for you. So if they can kind of look in the mirror and see, okay, after this first outing, I messed up here or here, and I could have done this better, and then they go out and actually work on those things. If they do that, then I don't think there will be any issues. But if they don't, then you're going to get some of these same results consistently.
Well, hopefully they can figure that out because in the end, I think they're going to be critical to the success of that defense, and you got to see them come up and through the system. I think by midseason that you're going to see a different story.
I know, and I'm pretty sure they hope so, and I'm pretty sure Seattle hopes so because they're kind of thin at the cornerback position right now. They need to hit on these young guys. Tomorrow, we are going to talk some more about some of these guys with our guy, John Harris. But that's going to do it for this episode. We want to thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen, and now you need to make Locked On Fantasy Football your second listen. All right, find an intellectual fantasy expert, Vinny Lyer, who is going to bring over 20 years of NFL experience and unique angle to give you the moves no one else has. Get ready for your fantasy draft and Locked On Fantasy Football. But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.